Good morning, this is Mrs. Benton. I just want to do a quick video checking in with you guys today. Your post this morning went through the learning engagements for today, so that's on the Google Classroom stream, which is located right here. So these are the suggested learning engagements for today. Revisiting last week's post, Connections Between Altruism and Justice. It's under classwork warm-ups, and you want to complete it if you have not yet done that, and then read all of the posts your classmates have made. I attached a document with the responses from all of the sections, and that is the document you should read. It has a bright yellow box at the top so that you know that you're in the right place. I will show you that. So under classwork, notice that these are the tabs at the front. Classwork. And then you want to scroll down to warm-ups. You can scroll down like on the side, or you can also use these little tabs here. And then to look at these warm-ups, we're going to scroll down until we get to the connections between altruism and justice. And then you can see, if you view the assignment, that you get to this document here. It has the bright yellow piece at the top that's going to notify you that you are in the document that has all the sections responses. There are comments on the side that I encourage you to read as well as you're reading down through this assignment. So let's go back to our stream on our Google Classroom. And we're right here again on this morning's post. Your next step is going to be to complete the assignment Altuism Intro, found under classwork altruism. And as of this morning, I didn't quite have it posted, but if you are watching this video, you have found it. So let's take a look at what that assignment is. This is the introductory video here. You're going to watch this video and then write on this post what is one connection between justice and altruism that was mentioned. And remember, later in the week, you're going to be responding to a question asking what are the connections between justice and altruism in our Out of Eden Learn case study. And so we'll be taking it one step further later in the week. Your next step is going to be to read this attached article and just list 3 altruistic acts from the article. So 3 examples of selfless giving from the article that you've read. For this response, it can be bulleted and doesn't have to be written in complete sentences. You can just list it out. So that is today's learning engagement. I want to go through our altruism expedition overview because we are transitioning out of the Out of Eden Learn case study, which was a case study that had 1 foot in justice and 1 foot in altruism. And we're moving into this altruism expedition and out of that justice expedition at this time. Here's the overview. The expedition title is just altruism. The standard we're going to be focusing on is to cite several pieces of textual evidence to support analysis of what the text says explicitly, as well as inferences drawn from the text. So we'll be working with various texts, video clips and fiction pieces, nonfiction pieces, and you'll be looking to use evidence to defend your claims. In terms of the long-term target, what I'm looking for here is that students can identify altruism in texts and apply the concept of altruism to their everyday experience. These are some questions that we're going to be taking a look at in the assessments, both formative and summative throughout this expedition. The factual question is just to be able to define what is altruism. The conceptual question is, can acts of altruism create global change? And this debatable question that we'll be exploring is, can it be considered altruistic if the person giving gets something out of it? So these are the questions we'll be wrapping our minds around as we move through this particular expedition. In terms of the supporting targets, this is what I'm looking for. I can define and discuss altruism using examples from texts read and outside research. I can identify the context of the text. I can compare and contrast, detailing the relationship between two texts. And I can use appropriate strategies for organizing complex information. So we're just at the beginning of this, and this is what we'll be working with as we're moving forward. So we will be moving into our next novel, Seed Folks, and in these first 2 weeks of our online learning experience, we've been jumping around a little bit, wrapping up our previous learning engagements, synthesizing our learning, posting things out that is a summative piece, demonstrating our knowledge of the Out of Eden Learn case study. And so it's been really complex, and you've had to go to lots of different platforms and do several different pieces to demonstrate your learning. I just want to reassure you that things will simplify moving forward as we're just going to be focusing on this novel, Seed Folks. And it won't be as complex on the Google Classroom platform as it has been the last 2 weeks. I just want to reassure you of that. Plus, I'm really excited to read this novel with you guys. It's super fun. It's really engaging. It's interesting. There's a lot of different perspectives and points of view that we'll get to experience, like a little vicarious travel through this novel coming up. So in terms of taking a look at your thinking, which I'm always doing, we're looking at this standard of citing several pieces of textual evidence to support analysis of what the text says explicitly, as well as inferences drawn from the text. And what I'm looking for is over here for you to eventually be fully independent in terms of your reasoning with evidence. Okay. And so what that looks like, students who are fully independent with reasoning with evidence, like using evidence to defend your claims, using direct quotes, paraphrasing from the text, is that you're self-coaching. So that's what I'm looking for. That's our ultimate goal. That means that you read your piece and you're like, oh, I don't have enough evidence here. Or that evidence needs to be defined a little bit better. Or perhaps I need to add a direct quotation as opposed to a paraphrase. So you're self-coaching and self-reflecting on your ability to reason with evidence and provide evidence to defend your claims. With a self-aware piece, like you're providing some evidence, but you just need a little bit of feedback or a little bit of coaching from a peer or from a teacher. If you're in that developing phase, that means that you need a little bit more support with your supporting evidence, using evidence to defend your claim, reasoning with evidence. Maybe your reasoning isn't making sense, or the evidence isn't quite appropriate or isn't quite powerful enough to really be clear to the reader. And then at this piece down here, then that is where a person is like unable to provide any evidence at all or can't come up with the reason. And it's okay to totally be stuck like that. Sometimes that happens if the content is totally complex, it's very complex and it's hard to understand. And so sometimes you might be stuck, and then you can only reason with evidence using with direct instruction from the teacher and some direct support. And don't worry or don't feel bad if you're at that place with reasoning with evidence. There's no problem with that. All of us are going to be at that place sometimes, depending on the content that we're engaging in. So I wanted to highlight a couple of connections between altruism and justice, as we're just bridging between those two expeditions right now. These are student responses on the assignment that you reviewed this morning, connections between altruism and justice. And I'm going to go ahead and read this to you. Microfibers getting into our water supply and poisoning fish was an example of injustice. And in this column over here is the example of altruism, the story of Stuff Project producing their informational video about the dangers of microfibers. The student response right here in the center column. This is unjust because all the microfibers are the people's fault because we are the ones making the plastic and making all of it go into the ocean. The fish were on the earth before, and we were killing them, and there's nothing that they can do about it. Also, the microfibers are ending up inside of us because we are eating the fish after the fish eat the microfibers. So what I want to point out about this is that this injustice is being called out by the Story of Stuff Project, and just the fact of calling it out and informing the public is altruistic. So it is altruistic to inform others about injustices. The second example I just wanted to highlight is are these connections between altruism and justice. On this left column, we have the example of injustice, environmental destruction that leads to environmental problems and then leads to harming human health. And the example of altruism on this column was post-war infographics. What can we do about it? So those are the infographics that you guys researched your own particular topic you were interested in informing the public about a particular piece of information having to do with planetary health, with that underwriting idea of like, what can we do about this injustice? So this student made the connections in between using the dialogue toolkit of I notice, making connections, and then extending their thinking. I notice that this is a problem that keeps occurring and that it is unjust that we are continuing to put the environment through that kind of treatment. The connection I made is between injustice and altruism is that companies and businesses need to expand, but they don't think in depth about the consequences and better ways to expand. So it's unjust that we are ruining the environment, but businesses need materials like paper to be able to keep going. These connections I made extend my thinking by looking at different perspectives from the company owners and the environmentalists. Making the connection above made me realize that companies need the environment to be able to work well and to be successful. So it is altruistic to inform the public about injustices, and it is altruistic to research injustices. It is altruistic to take an action in that response to that research. So in terms of your next steps back on your classroom stream, you are now being asked to complete this particular assignment, Altuism Introduction, formative, found under classwork Altuism. Let me show you that assignment again. Here it is. You can find it by scrolling down underneath classwork, but you can also just click on the topic of altruism on the side. So you're now going to just respond what is one connection between justice and altruism that was mentioned in this introductory video, and then you're going to read this attached article listing 3 altruistic facts, or free altruistic acts, and you can write those particular altruistic acts in bullet form. And this is the article here from the Washington Post, how you can help during the coronavirus outbreak. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys online.